The UN's International Court of Justice began hearings this week on a case filed by South Africa charging Israel of genocide in its war versus Hamas in Gaza. But then again, the United States has made its pro-Israel stance known early on by branding the charges as meritless amidst disagreement from nations who believe otherwise. VOA's Anita Powell reports with excerpts from Patsy Witakoswara.
Israel's war in Gaza has a new legal front, as the International Court of Justice on Thursday heard South Africa's case against Israel on charges of genocide, as it attempts to eradicate the militant group Hamas after its stunning October 7th attack on Israeli civilians. The hearing prompted protests outside the United Nations-backed court at The Hague. South Africa launched its argument that Israel has violated the 1948 Genocide Convention and compared the situation to one closer to home.
Our government has approached the International Court of Justice to prevent the unfolding genocide in Gaza. We have also asked for provisional measures which include an immediate suspension of Israel's military operations in and against Gaza. The commitment to justice and bring an end to the humanitarian atrocities in Palestine resonate deeply with the collective consciousness of the global community. The scale of these actions is reminiscent of the Rwandan genocide 30 years ago.
Officially, Israel's top ally disagrees.
We have said repeatedly that we believe these allegations, this case, is unfounded, and that there's no basis for accusations of genocide against Israel. That's not a word that ought to be thrown around lightly.
But there is no consensus in Washington, with some politicians and labor leaders supporting South Africa's call for a ceasefire and accusing Israeli forces of being overzealous. A State Department official who resigned in protest filed a document with the court in support of South Africa.
I'm not arguing that there should be a special standard for Israel, a higher one or a lower one. I'm simply arguing that there is a global standard and we need to hold all of our partners to it. And we need to hold ourselves to it. And in the case of Israel, there are laws that are simply being set aside, overlooked, interpreted differently, or acted upon differently. And that does not seem to be in accordance with the US approach to the international rule of law.
South Africa has long supported the Palestinian cause, with former President Nelson Mandela famously saying, "Our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians." Analysts say this is about much more than just Israel's conduct. With a growing list of countries and entities supporting Pretoria's view over Washington's, this could have major diplomatic fallout, especially if the UN-backed court renders a judgment against Israel.
It also brings into question the countries that are continuing to support Israel and provide weapons to Israel and provide intelligence to Israel and doing all these other things. So that has huge implications for U.S. relations with other countries around the world, not just in the short term, but also in the long term. And it also undermines the U.S.'s leadership on human rights in the world moving forward if there's any grounds that are found.
While arguments are expected to conclude this week, the court could take years to render a judgment. Meanwhile, the war continues, the death toll climbs, and families suffer. Anita Powell, VOA News, Washington.